So good morning, boys and girls. Actually, I should probably say good morning, ladies, because... Anyhow, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions this morning. The first question I would like to ask you is, what season are we celebrating in the church right now? Lent. We're celebrating Lent, right? And what is Lent? What is Lent? It's like 40 days, kind of like the 40 days we just heard that Jesus spent in the desert. Is it actually 40 days? Have you ever counted? There's a lot more than 40, but it's actually not. If I did all the math, and I'll tell you later how to do the math, so it's actually 40 days. But it's the 40 days before we celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus. But what is different about Lent than other times of year? What's different about Lent? We have to give something up. What did you give up? We gave up meat on Ash Wednesday and on Fridays in Lent. You could pray the rosary, that's good. But you're saying extra prayers. So you actually got two of the three things that are very special about Lent. In Lent, we say there are three things. Does anybody know all three of them? Probably not. We're praying, we're fasting, the two things that you said, pray and fast. Does anybody know what the third one is? Well, that's the fasting part. That's what she was just saying about giving something up. Almsgiving. Almsgiving. Do you know what almsgiving is? It's when you take your arm off and give it to somebody. Oh, that's almsgiving. I'm sorry. Almsgiving. Do you know what alms are? See, that's one of those things, one of those traditions maybe that we've lost. It's when we give something to somebody who has less than we do. It's when we give something charitably. Maybe we give a little bit of money, or we give some food, or we give some clothing to somebody who doesn't have anything. We call that alms, and we do the alms giving. You've heard about that, right? You know that we're supposed to be doing that? And that's something very special. But one of the things that happens every year when we start to come to Lent, one of the struggles that I always start to realize is that I kind of do the same thing year after year after year. I do the same prayers, and I do the same fasting. I give up the same thing. And so this year, one of the things that I recognize is, maybe it's because I thought I had it all figured out. But could Lent be different for us this year? Is there a way we can make Lent a little different? What can we do a little different this year? Give something else up. Yeah, we could think of some of the things like, how many of you here like to play video games? Yeah, a lot of you, right? You have lots of video games. Can you give up video games for Lent? That's something you could do. That could be a little different. How many of you like to spend time, let's say, doing nothing? I love doing nothing. Don't you love doing nothing? Maybe we could say, well, we'll start to do something during those times that are different. Like maybe that's when we can say that decade of the rosary, instead of just sitting around doing nothing. Things like that. But one of the things that we're going to ask this year is, after Mass, you can go, Miss McKee and a few others are going to be giving out. These things are called the rice bowls. I don't know if you've ever seen these before. You can make this into a little bowl, and it's going to have a little slot in the top. And if you have extra money, you can put it in here, and at the end of Lent, you bring this back to us. Is there a particular day we want it back? Or? So the week after Easter, so it'll actually be when Easter gets here, you bring this back to us, and we will make sure that whatever in here will be given to the poor, and will help feed the poor and care for the poor. And so you can do that all during Lent. And the best way to do this, when you do get this, the best way to do this is when you give something up, like let's say you gave up something for Lent, whatever money you would have spent to buy that, put in here. How does that sound? So at the end of Mass, make sure you all get one of these rice bowls. And we also have a little gift too. We have these little meditation books for the children. So if you want one of these meditation books, we have these as well. And you can read these like with your parents and as a family. This is an important thing to do because these last couple of years, I have to admit, Lent has been very different for me. Now, it's probably not as much for you because you don't notice it as much, but as a priest, I love spending time with people during Lent. And 2 years ago, I couldn't spend time with anybody because they told me not to spend time with anybody. Wasn't that a real bummer? But this year, now we're all together. And when we're together like this, we can do so many other things. So as we gather here week after week, one of the things that I'm kind of hoping is that we're going to get better at our Lenten journey. That we're going to start to work on trying to pray more, and maybe when we give something up, that we really truly stick to it, and then also that we're able to help the poor. And so those three things are always, always, always important during Lent. But Jesus just did something, and I'm wondering if anybody noticed there was one special sentence in there, but Jesus just did something. What did Jesus just do that we heard in the gospel? What did Jesus do? I know it's like 15 minutes ago, right? What did Jesus do? He denied the devil. Oh, he did a slam dunk on the devil, didn't he? Where was he when he did that? Where was he? He was in the church. I don't think, well, Jesus is always in the church, isn't he? It's a pretty good place to find him if you're looking for him. But this was when he was actually here on earth as a human being, and he went someplace. He went out into the desert. Have you ever been in a desert? I've actually been in the desert that Jesus was in. And let me tell you, it's real boring. There are no trees, there are no plants, and there's really very little water. And so when he was in the desert, how long was he there? What did we say? How long was Jesus there? 40 days. 40 days. That's like almost 6 weeks. 40 days in the desert. Could you imagine? And he didn't eat at all. And did you hear the line it says, and he fasted and he was hungry. After 40 days of not eating, I think he'd be real hungry, don't you? Maybe to the point where he was very uncomfortable. See, that's the fasting part that we forgot about. And for me, especially when I give something up, it should be something that isn't easy. It should be something that's a little more difficult. And I think sometimes we've gotten so used to, like, I'll give up candy or I'll give up this. Or it's something so easy to give up that it really doesn't make us uncomfortable at all. But Jesus is setting an example for us. You know, at the other end of Lent, what's going to happen at the other end of Lent? Jesus is going to suffer again, isn't he? On Palm Sunday, what do we recall? What do we remember on Palm Sunday? I'll give you a hint. When Jesus dies on the cross, when he suffers for us so that we can get to heaven one day. And so we need to remember that this suffering that Jesus just did in the desert begins Lent to remind us of the suffering he's going to have to do at the end of Lent. And so sometimes it's actually good for us to work together to make each other strong. And so let's, this Lent especially, make a commitment that it's going to be a little bit different. That Lent is going to be a special time for us to be able to get closer to Jesus. How many of you love Jesus? You wouldn't be here otherwise, right? You love Jesus? I love Jesus so much, and all I really want to do every year during Lent is to show Jesus how much I love him. I know how much he loves me, there's no doubt about that. And so this Lent especially, if you think you had it all figured out this Lent, try again to just do it a little bit more, a little more praying, a little more fasting, and some almsgiving this year. Can we work on that? You know, you can also work that out with your parents and with your family and with those whom you live. So I'm going to send you back now to go find your parents or whomever you came here with and give them a big hug and a kiss for me and let them know how much you love them. So you can get up now and you can start heading back. And moms and dads, as they're coming back, one of the things that I noticed a couple of years ago, and I said this last night in my homily, I'd like to share this with you. A couple of years ago, if you all remember, I had to kick you all out of church halfway through Lent. If you recall, that was when the lockdowns began. And for me as a priest, that really disrupted my Lent that year. Because I had gotten very, very casual about Lent every year. I really didn't get excited about Lent anymore because it was the same old thing year after year after year. And God threw a wrench in my works. God really, as a priest especially, and you can ask any of the priests, it was kind of like torture for us to not have people, especially during Lent and Easter. A time when we as priests are there for you and trying to help you and to help you grow closer to Christ. And then all of a sudden, there we were, just stranded, trying to figure out ways we can bring the sacraments to the people. And we found some ways, even though the bishop didn't like some of them and would call us up and say, no, you got to stop doing that. We say, sure, Bishop, anything you say, Bishop. Okay, Bishop. And we continue to do them anyhow. But that was something that really woke me up. So maybe it's good for all of us who are sitting here to think about our Lent this year. And maybe it's time for us to say, I thought I had it figured out, but maybe I could go a little further. Maybe I could push a little harder. And maybe I can really work this Lent to being truly and fully connected to Jesus Christ. I don't want to let another Lent pass by in my life where I don't have those opportunities, and I ask you to do the same. You know, one of the things that Lent, at the end of Lent, hopefully will happen for all of us is we'll go out of here on fire for Christ. Because Jesus went into the desert, and you know what the very next thing he does after he finishes his 40 days? He starts his mission. He goes off and he starts immediately to preach and to bring people together and to start to do that. And so I'm hoping during this Lent, as we have opportunities for things like the 99 and other things, that we'll be empowered and on fire so that we can go forth during the Easter season like the apostles did and share the good news. I know there's a lot of people out there nowadays, they have all those little hashtag things they do. This year I want ours during Lent to become hashtag Catholic Strong. Hashtag, we're Catholics. And I take pride in my Catholicism, and I hope you do too. And let's go out there and let the world know that, yes, we are believers in Jesus Christ. And for him, I am willing to even fast and pray and give alms for the good of all of God's people, the good of all of those who have yet to know Christ. And may you truly be those who go forth and share the good news by first fasting and praying and preparing for the mission. God bless you.